Imagine this. It's Monday morning. You wake up slowly, no alarm and no rush. You make your coffee and actually sit down to drink it. Maybe you head to the gym at 9 instead of 7. You stay a little longer, talk to someone afterwards, leisurely. And then it hits you. You don't have to be anywhere. What if I told you that that life might be closer than you think? In today's video, I'm going to show you 5 signs that you may be able to retire earlier than you think. Not based on guesswork, but based on how your life and your money actually come together. Sign 1, that you can retire earlier than you think. You can replace your paycheck with your income. Now, this doesn't usually happen all at once. It tends to happen in stages. The first stage is preparation. You're moving toward being debt-free. Your mortgage is either paid off or you have a clear plan for it. You're not carrying other debt, and you're not taking on anything new that would tie you to a paycheck. That alone reduces how much income you actually need in retirement. The second stage is coverage. Your income, whether from investments, savings, or other sources, can cover your core living expenses, housing, food, insurance, and your day-to-day life. At this point, you're no longer dependent on your salary to maintain your lifestyle. The third stage is margin. You have income left over after covering your essentials. That gives you the ability to spend on things you enjoy, going out to dinner, traveling, saying yes to spontaneous plans, without needing to think about every dollar or think about it twice. And there is one more piece to this. It's not just covering expected expenses, it's about being able to handle the unexpected. Home repairs, helping family, irregular costs that come up over time. And they always do. If your plan can absorb those without putting your long-term income at risk, that's when early retirement becomes a realistic option. And once that's in place, the question shifts from, can I afford to retire, to what else do I need to feel confident about making this decision? Sign 2. You have a healthcare plan. Now, for a lot of people, this is the biggest factor that holds them back from retiring earlier. Not because it's unsolvable, but because it feels uncertain. And once you actually put a plan around it, it tends to be much more manageable than people expect. The key is understanding the gap, the years between when you retire and when Medicare kicks in. So how do people typically cover this? The most common route is the ACA marketplace. And what many people don't realize is that your premiums there are based on your income, which means depending on how you structure your withdrawals, you can often control your costs more than you think. For some people, that might mean premiums in the range of a few hundred to over $1,000 per month, depending on age, location, and income level. Another piece to consider is an HSA if you've built one up over time. That can be one of the most tax-efficient ways to cover healthcare expenses in retirement. And in some cases, people may look at private insurance options and other forms of coverage depending on your situation. You've probably also seen the estimates. Fidelity, for example, suggests around $300,000 over lifetime for healthcare costs in retirement. But that number is very broad because in reality, it depends on your health, your coverage choices, and how you plan for it ahead of time. What matters most is this. Have you accounted for healthcare in your plan, and do you know how you're going to cover it? Because once you do, it stops being a big concern and becomes a defined expense, just like everything else. And when that uncertainty is removed, it takes away one of the biggest reasons people stay in 1 more year or 5 more years mode. And once healthcare is accounted for, the next step is understanding how your priorities are evolving. So sign number 3 that you may be ready to retire earlier is your priorities are starting to shift. Now, money is only one part of the decision to retire. The other part, and I would argue the more important part, is your life. And for most people, this doesn't happen all at once. It starts gradually. You begin to notice the passing of time more clearly, not in a dramatic way, just a growing awareness that time is more limited than it once felt. And as that happens, the trade-offs start to look different. Earlier in your career, it made sense to trade time for money. You were building, accumulating, creating options. But at a certain point, that trade-off becomes more expensive. Time starts to feel more valuable than additional accumulation, especially your healthy, active years. Things that didn't feel urgent a decade ago, travel, time with family, flexibility in your day, start to matter a lot more. And this is where people begin to shift from thinking, I should keep going, to start asking, what am I continuing this for? Because even if the numbers work, most people don't retire until something internal changes. You start wanting more time, not more accumulation, more flexibility, not more pressure. And when this shift happens, the question changes. It's no longer, how much do I need? It becomes, what am I waiting for? And once you start asking that question, the next step is making sure your decision works for everyone involved. So sign number 4, you're aligned with your spouse and your family on what this next chapter looks like. And this is something I see all the time when I work with clients. Most people haven't actually taken the time to sit down and talk through what retirement looks like for each person. Not just we want to retire, but what actually means day to day. One person may want to be closer to their kids and spend more time helping with grandchildren. The other may want to travel more or stay engaged in something new, consulting, volunteering, learning. And neither is right or wrong. But if those expectations aren't discussed, it can create friction later on. There's also a second layer to this, which is how you want to support your family financially. How much do you want to help your kids with a home purchase, education, or other needs? When do you want to do that? And how does that fit into your own retirement? And beyond that, do you have an estate plan in place that reflects those decisions? Because when these things haven't been thought through, it creates uncertainty and procrastination around this most important decision in your life. But when you've had those conversations and you've made those decisions intentionally, it removes another layer of hesitation. And once that's in place, the final step is understanding how to structure everything into a plan you can rely on. So sign number 5 that you may be ready to retire earlier is you have clarity on how your retirement actually works. Not just what you have saved, but how it turns into income, how it's taxed, and how it supports your life over time. Because this is where I see the biggest gap. People can be very close, but they don't have a clear plan for how everything comes together. And without that clarity, it's very easy to default to just one more year, even when it may not be necessary. So what does that clarity actually look like? You understand your income, where it's coming from, and how it replaces your paycheck. You understand the tax side, how the withdrawals are taxed, and how to reduce unnecessary taxes over time. You've thought through longevity, how long your money needs to last, and how your spending may change over time. And you've built flexibility into the plan. So if markets change or life throws something unexpected your way, you know how to adjust. Because a good retirement plan isn't about getting everything exactly right from day one. It's about having a structure you can rely on and the ability to adapt as things change. And once you have that, you're no longer guessing. You're making decisions based on a plan you understand and trust. So if we step back a moment, these are the 5 signs that you may be able to retire earlier than you think. 1, your income can replace your paycheck. 2, you have a plan for healthcare. 3, your priorities are starting to shift. 4, you're aligned with your spouse and your family. And finally, 5, you have clarity on how everything comes together. And what I see over and over again is that when these pieces are in place, people are often much closer than they think. Not years away, but sometimes decisions away. And that brings you back to the real question. Not just, can I retire, but what am I waiting for? Because at a certain point, time becomes more valuable than more accumulation. So if you're watching this and thinking, I might be closer than I thought, but I don't fully know how this would work for me, that's exactly where having a clear plan makes all the difference. If you want to understand where you stand and what your retirement could actually look like, you can book a consultation using the link below. We'll walk through your situation, your income, your taxes, your decisions, and map out a plan so you can move forward with confidence and not guesswork. And if you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe. I'll continue to break down how to think about retirement so you can make better decisions with your money and your time. I'll see you in the next video.